Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Live from Sri Vrindavan Dham in the Krishna Balaram Mandir. This is Wisdom of the Sages, your daily yoga podcast with your host Raghunath and co-host Basti and birthday boy Kaustubha Das.
Hello.
Welcome to the show. We are reading from our Srimad Bhagavatam. It's so special to be reading the Srimad Bhagavatam in Vrindavan. This is the land of thousands of Krishna temples. Truthfully, it's sort of like temple after temple after temple after temple, like one after another, forever.
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere. And some temples are massive, some temples are very tiny, but this is the temple that we first went to when we were young men. I came here in 1988 on my God quest, and it's great to be back here. 88, what year? 32 years later. Is that it? Is that it? Do the math here.
Oh, God.
32.
I guess something like that.
32. Wait, 20 and 32, right? Is anybody with me here? 1988 is 2020. When did I come here?
Yeah, that works. 32. 32.
We're a mess.
We got an audience here, but none
We
of them
got a sleepy audience in the background here. Anyway, if you're new to this show, we're studying the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a classic work, 5,000-year-old work according to the work itself. One of the great epics of the Puranas of ancient India, and it is meant to connect all people to the divine, no matter what gender, what race, what religion. It's finding what we all have actually in common, and that is the spirit, soul, or the self, or the Atma. A little different than how my mother taught me that we have a soul. We are a soul. What we have is a body. And it pushes this narrative again and again to make, because we tend to forget. I tend to identify with my body as myself, my things as myself, right? My occupation as myself, my gender as myself, my gender preference as myself. And the Bhagavatam says, none of them are yourself. You have a real self underneath all those things. You're the driver of this vehicle. And so the Bhagavatam, through like these elaborate, fantastic, incredible stories of gods, goddesses, avatars, heroes, villains, it tells these magical stories. And Kaustubha, you want to say anything about about the Bhagavatam?
Well, it's the conclusion of all of the Vedic literature, which is the basis of not only all yoga teachings, but all Eastern philosophy basically stems off it in one way or another.
We encourage yoga teachers to dive into this stuff because you can really teach with some authority based on, actual references to these, to the Vedic texts. And it really sort of deepens your teaching and deepens we call it a zooming out concept of
perspective,
of zooming out perspective
mm-hmm.
of our yoga practice.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why there's a lot of yoga teachers you'll notice also on the show. If you want to join us live on the show, we have a live group on Zoom. It's sort of live. And then sometimes we have live, like the people behind us who are all on pilgrimage with us. But if you want to join us on the live Zoom group, you got to email Mara, our executive producer, at
wisdomofthesages108
at gmail.com. We should do it so he's talking half sentences.
Okay, wisdom
of the sages
108. Oh, you took it. Still,
I'm taking two. I got impatient. Okay, so we're in chapter 4. Canto 1, chapter 4, text 3. And then
we're starting chapter 4.
We're starting chapter 4, text 1. Duh. Thanks. And so we always start reading the Bhagavatam with these prayers appreciating the Bhagavatam and the previous masters. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshu badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee. All that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service to the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
We're actually starting chapter 5 today.
Oh, we're starting chapter 5. Whoa, thank you. I love that. All that is troublesome to the heart. Doesn't that make you feel good to know by constant, regular attendance in the Bhagavatam that everything troublesome to the heart will go away? Isn't that a great promise?
It is.
I'm ready. I've got some trouble. I've got a troubled heart.
Let's work it out.
Okay.
Should we have a little recap at this point?
Please, Kaustubha. Kaustubha is the master of a recap.
I'm just going to try to recap. So we heard in the previous chapter how Srila Vyasadeva, who's the sage that provides all the Vedic literature, the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Mahabharata with the Bhagavad Gita and the Puranas with the Srimad Bhagavatam, how he, after writing all of this brilliant literature that's meant for the upliftment of humankind, particularly as they descend into the dark age of Kali, he's feeling somehow incomplete, a little bit despondent, can't quite put his finger on it. He's figuring that, I've lived this pure life, I've dedicated myself, I've really tried to serve, but I don't feel something's missing, something's not quite right. And he gets a clue. He begins to think, maybe it's because I haven't directly shown bhakti as the path that delivers pure devotional service. So I haven't identified Krishna as the root of all existence, and by connecting with him, one can find complete satisfaction in the soul. So he's thinking like this, and as he's thinking like this, his guru, Narada, appears. Maybe you could say something about Narada.
Narada is this transcendental sage who's conquered time, so to speak.
Oh, hold it. Rosie Bell.
Rosie Bell, mute that mic.
There.
Here. Oh, I just unmuted her. There we go.
Okay.
He transcends time. You can go between different. I guess when you're not of this body, you're not of this time factor. But he's a great sage. He's one of the. He's a student of Brahma,
and as well as the son of Brahma.
Yeah, he's one of the son of Brahma and the student of Brahma. And he's the guru of Vyas. And you used to hear about him in all the epics of ancient India, all the Puranas. He just pops in every now and then.
He travels around just basically doing kirtan all the time. And
he's basically doing kirtan all the time.
And giving good advice.
Yeah. He also is famous for sort of like starting trouble. Like he's a procrastinator. Not a procrastinator, a instigator.
But always
never a procrastinator.
So that the good comes out of the trouble, he'll stir up a little trouble sometimes.
Yeah, he like invites the avatar of Vishnu to appear sooner by stirring up some trouble.
All right. But here he's clearing things up today.
So, all right, let's dive in right here.
All right.
Chapter 5 is called Narada's Instructions on the Srimad Bhagavatam for Vyasadeva. Sutta Goswami said, "Thus the sage amongst the gods, Narada, comfortably seated and apparently smiling, addressed the rishi amongst the brahmanas."
Who is Vyasadeva?
Addressing Vyasadeva, the son of Parashara, Narada inquired, "Are you satisfied by identifying with the body or the mind as objects of self-realization?"
Okay, that was blunt.
That was blunt. Here, on the purport, it says, this is a hint by Narada to Vyasadeva regarding the cause of his despondency. Vyasadeva is a descendant of Parashara, a greatly powerful sage, and he had the privilege of having a great parentage, which should not have given Vyasadeva a cause for despondency. Being a great son of a great father, he should not have identified the self with the body or the mind. Ordinary men with a poor fund of knowledge can identify the body as the self or the mind as self, but Vyasadeva should not have done so. One cannot be cheerful by nature unless one is factually seated in self-realization, which is transcendental to the material body and mind.
Okay. So sometimes we identify the body as the self. And I think people that have some interest in spirituality can see beyond that, at least theoretically. But the mind, we also identify with the mind as the self. But what we really need to learn is that the mind really just it's It's a whole nother machine that's not us. It's operating, but it's not who we are. Those likes and dislikes, all those ideas, they don't necessarily have anything to do with the actual self, the soul.
And which is the whole reason why you'll hear in a yoga class, even in an asana class, you'll hear people say, control the mind, settle the mind, calm mind. That's why there's so many breathing techniques or tratak or gazing techniques to hold the mind, dristi techniques to hold the mind in place. Because my trouble, for the most part, is mental.
Yes.
All my troubles are mental.
Yoga is just all about the mind. It's all in the mind, all those troubles.
And we're supposed to create a healthy detachment, almost as if I'm watching a movie. I'm watching Titanic and I'm crying, or I'm watching a horror movie and I'm screaming. It's not actually even happening to me, but I'm identifying with the players on the screen or the actors on the screen as my reality. And due to that attachment, I cry, I weep, I laugh, I dread, I fear. It's not actually even happening to me. The lights go on, the movie's over. So in the yoga system, a lot has to do with this. We see these ups and downs, these pains, these pleasures, these loss, these gains are like waves in an ocean. They come and go, and we just have to be tolerant as we sort of sail our boat through them. Easier said than done.
True. I mean, you get these meditation classes where the teacher will say, just watch your thoughts. Don't try to stop them. Just let them come, let them go, and observe them. And that exercise, it's meant to help us realize I'm not my mind. My mind is just a computer with all kind of programming that's going on in it, and it has nothing to do with me.
Sometimes it's just good to hear this, and just by hearing it, I find students will come up to me and say, wow, I'm not the body, I'm not the mind. That is such a relief. Because we're so clueless sometimes, like, what am I? Why am I so sad today? Why am I so depressed today? Why am I so angry today? And when you just, first of all, you should understand, it's not me. I got a flat. You don't have a flat. My car's got a flat. Right. And so when I just get it's not me, it sort of like separates me from it a little. And even though I might still be in the mind, I see an access point out of that pain.
It might just be theoretical in the beginning, but even getting the theory can be a great relief.
You know, that's why also with Bhakti-yoga, we're also trying not to get excited when the mind gets excited. Like, this is going to be great. This is going to be awesome. Because that's also unreal. Mm-hmm. It's also, we have to see this is the mind hyping me up for something. And it's a good way to test, like, where do you get your actually pleasure from? Is it from tangible pleasure, your relationship with a friend, or you're eating together, or your, what else is the way you treat people? Your lifestyle, or is it through some hope to enjoy the future? And that's material pleasure. It's a hope to enjoy. It's not actually tangible enjoyment.
Nice point. Nice point, Raghu.
Thank you, Prabhu. By the way, birthdays, it's Kaustubha's birthday, but in spiritual culture, when you have an exalted spiritual person like Kaustubha, we don't call it a birth. Because Kaustubha comes into my life with great knowledge, great wisdom. I appreciate him so much in my life. So we see that as not a birth. We see that he's a special soul.
You're being very generous here. I
came
came out just like everybody else.
Well, that's a birth, but we realize that it's a divine birth. It's a special birth. So with great souls, we call them appearances. They appeared for our benefit. So I'm benefiting so much by having Kaustubha in my life. I don't like to call it a birthday, because that would sort of make him sort of ordinary. And I consider him quite extraordinary.
Oh, too kind.
Your inquiries, back to the verse 3, your inquiries were full, and your studies also were well fulfilled. And there is no doubt that you have prepared a great and wonderful work, the Mahabharata, which is full of all kinds of Vedic sequences, elaborately explained.
Mahabharata, everyone should know. Everyone should read. Yoga teachers must know.
Yeah, this is, if you want to really get a good grip on the culture of even present day India, it all is coming from these teachings of the Mahabharata, the life of the Mahabharata, this incredible epic of heroes, villains, sages, saints,
wisdom.
Krishna appearing, Krishna speaking the Gita is one of the thin chapters of the Mahabharata, and it's a good, wonderful, fun read too. It's not just like, oh, I got to get through this
You can't put it down.
You can't put it down. You can't put it down. I have it on Audible. My kids listen to it in the car all the time. It's one of these books. Our favorite one is, my favorite one, I can't speak, is Krishna Dharmas. If you like that, is Lindsay on the phone?
We got our scribe.
There's our scribe here. It's
Krishna Dharma.
Krishna Dharma, the Mahabharata.
Although I must admit, I like the Kamala Subramaniam translation.
I like that one too. I'm going to write that. Kamala Subramaniam.
For the poetic kind of translation, I like the Kamala Subramaniam. For like getting all the philosophy correct, I like the Krishna Dharma.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm with you on that. I agree. I've read them both. The Krishna Dharma one, I think, is it's bigger, and therefore you can really fall in love and like start to get angry at the archetypes of good and evil. And it just makes you, I've cried for both versions of those books. You get wrapped up into it. I find any shorter than that, I don't get enough into the character development, and you can't fully appreciate the story.
Right. So you're saying that Krishna Dharma is available.
That's easy on Amazon. It's also on Audible. It's actually hard to get the Kamala Subramaniam one.
Indian stores have. You can probably get it online. Amazon.
You can?
Yeah.
All right.
Or Indian.
I stand corrected.
Indian stores have it. Like it's Indian. Any
Bhartiya Vidya Bhavan is the publisher.
Bhartiya Vidya Bhavan. Yeah. Okay.
All right. All you have. You have fully delineated. This is his guru Narada speaking to Vyas. You have fully delineated the subject of impersonal Brahman, as well as the knowledge derived therefrom. Why should you then be despondent in spite of all this, thinking that you are undone, my dear Prabhu? Prabhu means master. It's a nice way to address each other. We've sort of taken that word. Generally, it's a masculine term. You don't address the lady, but we've sort of upcycled that because in genuine spiritual philosophy, we treat everybody as masters, although Leela Vilasini corrected me. It is just for men. You call a woman Mataji.
You can say Prabhi.
Prabhi. Yeah, you can say Prabhi.
Just try that.
Want to try Prabhi? I'm never going to do that. Prabhi. Like a sadhu and a sadvi.
If we could do it, if we set our minds to it.
Okay, want to try Prabhi for a couple words?
Let's try it while we're here in Vrindavan.
Okay, while we're here, we're going to call ladies Prabhis.
See if it works.
And men Prabhus.
All right, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Okay. Srila Vyasadeva said, all you have said about me is perfectly correct. Despite all this, I am not pacified. I therefore question you about the root cause of my dissatisfaction. For you are a man of unlimited knowledge due to your being the offspring of Brahma, who is self-born, without mundane father or mother. So Brahma is the original, the Aja, the original being.
Born from the lotus which grew from the navel of Lord Vishnu.
Isn't that interesting? He had no mother or father. My Lord, everything that is mysterious is known to you because you worship the creator and the destroyer of the material world and the maintainer of the spiritual world, the original personality of Godhead, who is transcendental to three gunas, or the three modes of material nature.
Yes.
I'm going to dip that purport, if you don't mind. A person who is cent percent, I love that word. I don't think people say that in the West. I don't know if it's an English thing, cent percent.
Probably.
A person who is cent percent engaged in the service of the Lord is the emblem of all knowledge. Such a devotee of the Lord is in full perfection of bhakti. And he's also perfect by the qualification of the personality of Godhead. As such, the eightfold perfections of mystic yoga, the siddhis, constitute very little of his godly opulence. A devotee like Narada can act wonderfully by his spiritual perfection, which every individual is trying to attain. Narada is a cent percent perfect living being, although not equal to the personality of Godhead. So, a little dip into yoga culture. A lot of yogis in traditional ashrams, they're working for these things called siddhis, S-I-D-D-H-A, or I, a siddha or a siddhi. And these are mystical perfections. There's 8 major ones and many, many minor ones. But these have to do with like levitation, making things appear from other dimensions in your hands. So it appears like they're appearing. It's stuff that quantum physics speaks about, and now it's like, yeah, of course it can exist. But for the longest time, it was just like, this is crazy. That can't happen. So it was either considered magic or just fallacious. It was just not based in reality.
And other people think it's God.
Yeah, and then other people would say, yeah, this must be God. This person's God incarnate. Christ was famous for a lot of these yogic siddhis, which are fascinating, which is sometimes why people, well, I'm going to believe in this person because he rose from the dead. He exorcised spirits from people, threw them into the hog. And what else did he do? Walked on water, made food appear. So he must be God. But in India, there was so many people doing these siddhis at that time, and even still at this time, people do siddhis. But the thing is, it's not that which makes a person qualified to be a messenger of God. It is what they teach. And so taking nothing away from Christ, the essence of Christianity is bhakti. You love God with your heart, mind, and soul. That's Bhakti-yoga. And this is what we're teaching. And it will come through in different cultures all over the world. Why? Because truth is one. We just gravitate towards the Vedas because it's such a very, very detailed, it just colors in a lot of the blank spaces for me personally. And that's why I was attracted to it. What do you think?
I felt the same way. I felt like it was able to answer all my questions in a consistent way. And the deeper that I dug into it, the more satisfying it became.
I didn't find myself an enemy of other spiritual paths. As a matter of fact, I found like it was the thread tying them all together.
I felt the same way, Robbie.
Did you?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking today what were we talking in the morning class about mindfulness? People talk about mindfulness. We talk about all these other, it's almost like incomplete without understanding, like it's all meant to bring me to connection.
Right.
The whole concept of there's a whole mindfulness movement of be mindful when you eat, be mindful when you speak. Mindfulness should bring you to love of God. According to the way the Vedas push you.
It's not the goal itself.
It's not the goal of itself. You can be completely evil. And I think Mussolini was really mindful. I just don't think he was a great spiritualist or a yogi. I don't think mindfulness in ends of itself is what we're looking for. All these things are meant to bring us to connection. And I find that studying the Bhagavatam will not make you say, see, this is so much better than the Bible. This is so much better than Buddhism. This is so much. What you'll see is, oh, I understand how this stuff fits together. Trust me on this. It will connect all the dots.
I like that.
Connect the dots.
All the dots.
Hashtag that one. Okay. Like the sun, your goodness can travel everywhere in the three worlds. So he's glorifying Narada right now.
Yeah.
Narada has this ability to leave this planetary system.
We're getting into those things that require faith, right? But I like what you're saying about these siddhis. And it's just, we've talked about this in the past, I think, on the show, but just the idea that things that we've never seen, we think are impossible. But if we're just a little bit observant, we'll see that there are all kinds of things that to people 100 years ago would seem totally impossible, that people just know how to do it now, like cell phones or smartphones or computers or so many things.
Sure.
That would seem, how can I look into this piece of glass and speak to someone on the other side of the world by just touching it in a few different places?
What to speak of things they did in ancient times that were just like, we can't even understand. Like when you study these old megalithic monuments, be it like pyramids from Central America, how do they build it? And it's built according to the cosmos. It's not just like randomly built in the forest. It's built according to the cosmos. Like during these lunar equinox, the sun is going to come right through this spot, right? It's like fascinating stuff. And it's not random. It's actually incredibly scientific. And people are just a little bit more in tune than we are often now.
So now the Bhagavatam is telling us that this person, Narada, can kind of travel kind of at will, interplanetarily.
Right? Interplanetarily. But when we hear that type of stuff, it's sort of like, yeah, this is a great story. This is a fantastic story. This is like, oh, Zeus and the gods. But you know what? We don't know much. We don't know much at all. And their idea is that there are higher planets and there are lower planets. I mean, the whole thing that we're the only life form in this entire universe is so like arrogant.
It's a frog in the well.
It's a frog in the well. We live like a frog who's never left the well. Yeah. Yeah, according to the Bhagavatam, what's the verse? There's life on all planets. Sarva Jiva Bhutanam. Something like that.
Yeah, Jivasna Jivanam. That's everyone living and he lives
Yeah.
off another one. But
Yeah, no, I can't remember.
yeah, they're everywhere. Sarvam,
Living beings exist all over the universe.
Just drop the ball on that one.
Yeah, you may not be able to see, like there's living beings in this room I don't even see, right? If I just use my senses, I see you. If I just use my senses, I'm missing out on so many living beings.
Right.
There's so many living beings in my body, right? My body is like a universe to them. So anyway, it takes a little bit. It's not even a leap of faith. It's reasonable faith to understand this stuff.
It's considered as a possibility. And then if someone's a real scientist, they can find, we've known real, like, Cornell PhDs and stuff like that, that would read the Bhagavatam and then begin to understand how what's being described could be explained by
quantum physics or just even being a little. I mean, I remember the time when I was 14, I would think, oh, my dog can hear these sounds that I can't hear.
Right there.
Like, what are there sounds that, are there other things that I don't have the senses for?
Right.
What senses am I missing out on to have objective reality?
Or even like when we were kids, like we'd watch the Jetsons or Star Trek and see things there that were futuristic, but they're happening now.
Right.
How long before they had that transporter thing, right?
Oh, that's great. I'm looking forward to that.
So Narada could potentially, in one sense, he was doing that. He was traveling from one spot to another. We don't know the technology, how that's done. Bhagavatam's saying it can be done.
I think it was less gross technology. It was all subtle. It was more refined technology. Anyway, yeah. I'd like to go into it because some people listen to the show or they listen to this like, you know what, this is completely conspiracy theory, wacky, off the wall, quack type of stuff. But I don't like to say it's definitely like that, but I like to say it could be. Could be because could be. Once I say it's definitely not, it's a little bit arrogant.
It's not scientific either.
That's not scientific for sure because I don't know much. The honest truth is I know very little. I like to pose myself knowing a lot, but I know very little. So could be.
We're going to open ourselves up to the possibility.
Right. And then watch your whole world change. Like the sun, your goodness can travel everywhere in the three worlds. So there's three worlds, higher planets, middle planets, lower planets. We're on Earth, it's sort of in the middle. As such, you are good as the all-pervasive supersoul. Please, therefore, find out the deficiency in me, despite my being absorbed in transcendence under the disciplinary regulations and vows. Per board here, transcendental realization, highest activities, worshiping deities, charity, mercifulness, nonviolence, and studying the scriptures. The scriptures are like there's almost like maps of how to move in this world. Under strict disciplinary regulations are always helpful.
Okay.
It's interesting. You cannot even understand this stuff unless you have refined your character. Isn't that interesting? You can't because you won't even because when you don't refine your character, suppose you are just addicted to eating and sleeping and mating and defending, you are living in your lower chakras. You're living sort of like with animal propensities. You can't see, for example, if every woman I see, I'm a heterosexual male, if every woman I see, I'm lusting after, I no longer see them as a being. I see them as a thing for me to enjoy. Mm-hmm. So that alone, that concept of living in my lower chakras, it puts on a set of lenses that steals away. That's why there's all this, you hear this biblical stuff, thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not do that. Mm-hmm. It's not just because God's trying to shake a finger at you and shame you. There are maps of how to act so that we can have clear lenses to develop spiritual vision. It's not God is trying to or higher power of force is just saying, no fun for you. We're trying to actually develop a new type of vision, not seeing from my lower chakras, but seeing through a spiritual vision, a spiritual lens, where I can actually see anybody and any beyond the human species as a living entity. And I'm sure anybody who stepped forward towards animal rights or vegetarianism, they develop a new relationship with all animals, not just their dogs and cats. They say, oh my God, Who wants to kill? I don't want to kill that bug. Let's get that bug out of the house.
So you're saying that the yoga literature or the Vedic literature, like almost any other religious literature, is going to have regulations in it, regulations about how you live, but that it can tie it in such a way where those regulations bring you to a point where you develop a certain type of vision wherein you can see every living being on a spiritual level rather than on merely a physical level.
The regulations help us getting out of our lower passions, our lower chakras, and move to our higher self and see things from a way of our higher consciousness. I mean, I can speak for myself. When I live in those lower chakras and somebody gets me angry, I want to bite. Someone cuts me off, I want to scream. Someone gets me angry or offends my ego, I want to fight back. It's like a base animal instinct.
Okay, so you're saying when one's detached, which comes through yogic knowledge, when we're attached, we tend to see things through our attachments, right?
Right.
And so if we become detached, we can actually see truth.
Right.
We won't have some kind of motive that's warping our perception. Is that where you're going?
Yeah, it fogs up our vision.
Okay.
And so yeah, this is all part of like cleaning our lenses. Anyway, so my point is, unless those senses are controlled, unless we're acting from sattva or our higher chakras, however you want to frame that, we're not going to even be able to understand spiritual knowledge. It's like an oyster. It shuts up. It shuts down. It locks down, and all you get is a hard shell. And as you start to, I don't know how you open an oyster, but if you gently open the oyster, there's more trust, there's more love, and all of a sudden you see there's a pearl inside. This stuff is like that. It's in there, but you have to act in such a way that Krishna wants to come out and reveal himself to you. And it happens. It's actually scientific in the sense like, someone say, well, it's not a science. You can't prove this. You have to enter the laboratory for it to work.
All right.
You can't just say it's not science. It's individual. You have to enter the laboratory. And there's, like in any scientific experiment, there's rules in a laboratory.
Sure.
There's a different special type of light that is on. You have to have certain instruments.
You always isolate things in certain ways to be able to determine whether the experiment leads in a particular way.
Here's me and Kaustubha trying to be scientists. Yeah. Trying to figure out the scientific
You
method.
isolate the specimen and then you treat the separate specimens in a different way and see what the results are, right? So if our consciousness is the specimen that's being experimented on, then we have to isolate it. It means I'm not going to expose it to this, I'm not going to expose it to that. I'm going to see what the effect is. And if a lot of people do it and they get the same result, well, then you can call that scientific.
You call it science.
All right.
All right. Thank you. There's our scientist, Ava, giving our thumbs up.
Oh, she
is a scientist, isn't she? Aren't you a scientist?
Maybe she ought to explain what.
Why don't you write that on the board? What
scientific
science
method is?
Yeah, maybe you should do the explaining. Ava, why don't you jump on for a second?
Unmute her.
Unmute her.
How do you do that?
You click mute. Unmute. There you go. Ava, tell us about scientific method here. We're pretty dull.
I think you guys did a great job, and Stephanie also mentioned the control group, right? It's about controlling an environment for one, and seeing what's able to grow. I think you guys got the metaphor perfectly. No need for deeper science than that.
Oh, you're so nice to us.
Yeah, I was digging through my biology class. Come on, Raghunath. Remember 10th grade. Come on. What's the scientific method? Thank you.
Thank you, Ava.
Thank you, Ava. Back to your mute. There you go. Sorry, we unmute, then it picks up everything on the podcast. Like the sun. Okay, we read that. Thank you. Sri Narada said, you have not actually broadcast the sublime and spotless glories of the personality of Godhead. That philosophy, which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord, is considered worthless.
Oh, blunt.
What do you think about that?
Well, I think this is a verse where, what was it? Was this the one or is it the next one? It's getting to the point now. This is what the Bhagavatam is all about. That Vyasadeva had written so much about yoga. You could say so much about religion if you want to. That was meant to uplift people, but he was still discontent. Why? He had not been direct enough. There's a lot of spirituality, you could say, or religion that has to do with enjoying this world in a better way. There's a lot of spirituality that has to do with escaping the sufferings of this world, but neither of those lead one to the highest point that gives complete satisfaction, the soul, Atma Supersidity. And the only way that one achieves that is through connecting with the divine source, through bhakti, through devotion. And whether one can look through all the spiritual traditions and find that bhakti tree. You can find it, as you were pointing out, in Christianity, Jesus says, love God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. That's the final teaching. That's bhakti. And so he's saying you never emphasize the final teaching enough. And that's why you're not feeling content.
Text 9. Although great sage, you have very broadly described the four principles beginning with religious performances. You have not described the glories of the personality, the Supreme Personality of Vasudeva.
Okay, so what are the four principles, beginning with religious performances?
Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha.
Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha.
These are called the four goals of life.
Yeah, a way of gradually
You want to
advancing.
explain?
Dharma means that I'm going to follow the Dharma. It can mean duty, it can mean religion, but it means I'm going to follow the duties in life that I'm supposed to follow. I'm going to be a good mother. I'm going to be a good father. I'm going to be a good husband. I'm going to be a good wife. I'm going to be an ethical business person. I'm going to whatever and these are kind of clearly delineated in the Vedic literature, what it means to be dutiful. So if one asks dutiful, Dharma, Artha, then wealth comes. That one gets the blessings of good karma. Dharma, Artha, Kama, and from that one can enjoy the things of this world. But what the Bhagavatams can point out is enjoying the things of this world, they're all temporary. It's actually just something going on in the mind. It's not deeply connecting on the spiritual level. Then comes moksha, which means I've recognized the futility of trying to enjoy material things in life, that they don't deliver the highest satisfaction to self. And then there's this idea of moksha, which is kind of, and many yogis would see that as the highest thing, but Vyasadeva in the Bhagavatam is going to define that as just a type of escapism. Not even in
He actually shuts it down. He actually shuts down mukti.
He's going to shut down mukti. Whereas people may read his Upanishads and get the idea that mukti is the highest thing. He's going to say, no, that's just escapism. It's kind of the opposite side of the coin of I could enjoy the material world or I could renounce the material world.
It's much better. It's much better than enjoying the world, because enjoying the world also is tied in with duality and suffering of the world.
Fair
so
enough.
in that way, in one sense, moksha or mukti is a spiritual path. It's just not permanent, and you have to disengage from the world to do it right.
Yes.
To do it actually right, you have to really disengage from the world.
And still, it doesn't deliver what the soul ultimately craves.
Which is relationship.
Which is relationship.
That's
which is ultimately divine love.
That's why Radha Swami's guru, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the person who translated the Bhagavatam we're reading, he calls it spiritual suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Want to explain why it's spiritual suicide?
Well, the idea is that if I look at my life, my experience in the material world, and if I analyze it through the teachings of the Upanishads, I could come up with the idea that, you know what, all duality causes pain. All form is illusory and ultimately leads to pain. All relationship, which is based on duality, there's me and there's you, that means two. All relationship leads to pain. So therefore, the truth, the ultimate goal that we're trying to achieve, if we're going to find lasting happiness, it must be that there's no form, that there's no duality, that there's no me and you, that there just is one divine light that you merge into and exist in forever. So there's a logic to that. But what Vyasadeva is going to try to clear up here in the Bhagavatam is that that's just a neutral stage, and even that's a temporary stage, because the soul by nature is designed to love. It's designed to love its very root, its source, God, and through connecting with that root to love every living being, which again is exactly what Jesus says in the Bible. After he says, love God with all your heart, with all your soul and all your mind, he also says,
love each other, love me, love flowers.
Come on, let's get that old Catholic boy teachings out.
Love God with your heart, mind, and soul. Love your enemy as your neighbor.
Well,
love your neighbors. Love your neighbors.
Yeah.
Love your neighbors as yourself.
There you go. Your mother would probably be proud of you.
Love dessert. Right? Love dessert.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's bhakti. That's considered. You see, like the bhakti yogis would say that the peace that one finds in moksha or mukti or that type of liberation is just a neutral stage. It's almost like if someone dunked your head under the water and you're suffering, and then you came out and you took a breath and it almost felt like bliss because you're in so much anxiety before and it's been relieved. But that's still like we're breathing all the time. It's just neutral.
Right.
But then there's like positive life. There's positive connection. There's positive relationship. There's love on the spiritual platform. And that's the goal of all the yoga literature. That's the goal of life.
We stumbled upon the right book.
All right.
Although a great sage, you have no. Okay, I just read that. Should I read the purport there?
All right.
I'm not going to read it.
All right.
We're doing good. We're doing good. Feel like you gave your own good purport there. Those words which do. Oh, this is a beautiful one. Those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered by saintly persons to be like unto places of pilgrimage for crows. Since the all-perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure there. Where do crows go on pilgrimage?
Garbage heap.
Garbage dumps. That's a place of pilgrimage for a crow.
You go to the garbage dump sometimes, don't you?
I live upstate. We all go to the garbage dump. I go to the garbage dump. And I guess I'm very crow-like because my kids are going, are you going to the dump?
Let's go.
Let's go to you know why? We always find some special goodies at the dump. I kid you not. I bring it back.
Crows. Crows do too, right?
Yeah, I guess we are. Aravins look at me. Are you crazy? Indians don't pick stuff up at dumps. This is an American thing. We go to the dump. We find cool goodies, bring them back home. I always come back with a bunch more stuff than I drop off. I sort of like trade stuff in at the dump. Last time I came, I found a World War II Army helmet, a sword.
Sword.
I don't know. You just find it's like a mystery box every time I go to the dump. I got a great dump. I mean, that's why my kids love going. Okay,
That's a famous verse.
This is a famous verse. It's the words that do not describe the glories of the Lord. So what is that? It's just like a brah, 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 just like talking and talking and talking. The words that don't that is like a place of pilgrimage for crows.
It's a verse about what we consume through our ears, right?
And what comes out of our mouth.
And ultimately that affects what comes out of our mouth. We listen to so much garbage throughout the day, don't we?
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to escape.
Even just for entertainment, or to speak of mundane literature or the news. No one feels good after watching the news.
Just to get through the day and our occupation and the people that we have to deal with, we expose our mind to a lot of stuff that's not so valuable and maybe even like negative.
Or toxic.
Or toxic.
Or like real rude or degraded.
And the sad part is because our culture is so weak in delivering quality stuff to consume that when we have a little free time, we're prone to start to absorb. Even when we have the freedom, we absorb a lot of junk.
Right.
Yeah. So Bhagavatam is saying that, how does it say? That all perfect persons. Oh, is that the one we're reading? 10. That since the all perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they do not take any pleasure there. When we elevate our consciousness, we lose taste for that crap.
I mean, some of you guys already get this.
Yeah.
You're in conversations with people, and then somebody comes up to you and starts just like criticizing somebody or gossiping about something. And you're like, immediately, I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear it. I want to get out of this conversation. How can I make this go away? How can I plug my ears here? What's a non-rude way to say, I'm out of here, please don't talk to me.
Yeah.
But we get to this point where we don't want to eat that junk food of the ears. It's junk food. It's toxic.
It's a garbage dump.
It's a garbage dump. It's like eating garbage. It's like eating Twinkies all day long. And
deep fried Twinkies.
Deep fried Twinkies, battered, dipped in batter, deep fried, covered in sugar,
and some
chocolate Hershey's syrup on top, dipped in powder.
And canola oil.
And lard.
That's
covered in mayonnaise. Hellman's mayonnaise. That's what we're eating. When we hear gossipy words, it is, there's a bunch of people watching the show here and eating too. They're like, mayonnaise. Is
that a problem?
Sega. Everybody's eating right now. What's going on?
This is a breakfast hour we got.
Okay, sorry about this. They're enjoying eating. So anyway, yeah, we have to be very, very careful about what we hear on a regular basis. Why? It becomes part of us.
Yeah.
It becomes part of who we are, especially if we're doing it. Just like if I'm doing handstands on a regular basis, I can do a handstand anywhere. I can do a handstand at the White House. I can do a handstand in front of the Washington Monument. I can do a handstand on a creek, on a rock, in the front lawn. I can do it in the office desk. I can do it anywhere. In the same way, if I practice, what are you talking about?
We're talking about the things that we consume.
When I consume gossip on a regular basis, that becomes part of what I actually am. I become a gossip, and I hear this stuff on a regular basis. And guess what? It starts to bleed out of my own mouth. And then I become the source of poison for people that I love.
You're increasing the dump.
Yeah, I become the source of, that's a good one. I become the source of poison. What do you think about that, Mara? Who are you knitting that for now? Mara knitted me my birthday scarf, and she knitted Kaustubha his birthday scarf.
It's a great scarf.
Now she's on to, I think, mine for next year. That's what I'm feeling. Mine for next birthday.
She's going to make a bigger one for next year.
Yeah, make it bigger than Kaustubha's. Remember, it's not a competition, but make mine better. Yeah, Raghu. Crows and swans. Here's the problem.
Oh, yeah. Swans and crows. There's going to be a contrast here.
Yeah. Crows and swans are not birds of the same feather because of their different mental attitudes. The fruit of workers and passionate men are compared to the crows, whereas the all-perfect saintly beings are compared to the swans. The crows take pleasure in a place where garbage is thrown out, just as the passionate fruit of workers take pleasure in wine and women or men and places for the gross sense pleasure. Like that's the topic of conversation. Oh, she's hot. Did you see her? Oh, check her out. That's where the conversation goes naturally, right? Or some people just like, I guess adults do it too, but I've been so removed from it in my whole life as being straight edge and then getting into bhakti. But, people talk about Friday night, let's go get plastered. Like they're glorifying getting plastered. Like it's a good thing. Like we've been given this computer brain gift and we are going to it's basically buying a new computer and pouring soda in your computer. And then the computer starts making beep, 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 beep. It starts making little things on the screen. You think, oh, cool. Look at the cool designs. Idiot, you just ruined your computer. Of course it's making crazy designs. It's the same way. I'm drinking and I'm drinking. I'm thinking, oh, this is so great. Oh, I'm seeing foggy things. Oh, I got my beer goggles on or whatever people say. I vomit. Oh, man, I got so sick. We got toasted last night. And we're glorifying a wrecked computer. Oh, man, I can't even remember where I was last night. What do we do? How do I get home? I woke up, in a, it's not glorious at all.
No.
You got Elvis Presley, these are the people we worship. These are the people we worship in the material world. Who's Elvis Presley? The king of rock and roll. He died vomiting in a toilet seat. That's choking on his own vomit. This is the king? Come on. We need a new king. Sorry. Sometimes that snowball rolls down the hill and I can't catch it anymore.
This guy spent the past 30 years screaming about straight edge.
Well, I'm just saying, it's like we need new heroes in this world, and we glorify these things that not only degrade us but break us.
It means our culture's weak. It means our culture hasn't delivered something higher for us, and so we're not, unless we really search it out.
And the weird thing is, we call it civilization. We call it civilized. We're civilized. We are refined. It's not refinement. It's refinement. Right, like sometimes you see people drinking whiskey and they think, honestly, this is a good scotch. This is a good. Is scotch whiskey?
I believe scotch is whiskey. I'm not positive.
Who knows if scotch is whiskey? It is. Okay. And so I think, oh, this is a very good scotch. It's almost like you're refined, but our refinement isn't the refinement of Tamas.
Right.
Refinement in passion. Right. We want refinement in sattva.
Right.
That's civilization. Every animal is going around eating and sleeping and mating. If I'm doing that, and if I'm just doing it in an unrestricted way, that's just animal life. It's that simple. Real civilization means pull back, control the senses, use the higher self.
Okay. and then contemplate some higher thinking, ask serious questions, and find there's actually a beauty and there's captivating stuff here. That's why earlier when we read that Narada says to Vyas, you wrote the Mahabharata, that was like an incredible work, because you can just get caught up in that. There's all that the mind needs there in terms of entertainment, in terms of philosophical contemplation. So much is there. But we have this tendency to go towards the lower stuff, to the places of pilgrimage for the crows, the newspapers, the websites, the gossip, all the stuff that brings us down.
Right, that's crow food.
You want to practice yoga? You take a certain amount of time in your day, a half hour, an hour, focus it on hearing something higher, focus it on Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, books like this.
This is what the yogis did forever. I mean, we're in a holy city right now in Vrindavan. This is like the land of baby Krishna.
Yeah.
And you'll see, you go to stumble into any of these ashrams in any different tradition, every morning they have a morning program of singing, of reading from Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita, the sacred literature.
Sometimes they get a good sound system and they're blasting it out everywhere.
Right. We're just like of energy. It's just like, this is just part of their sadhana, is to hear this truthful things and joyous things on a regular basis. And guess what happens when you put it in your ears? It flows out of the mouth. It is. Why did Vrinleela say kill Sattvic kings? I don't know why she wrote that. Thank you all so much for bringing these. Okay. How are we doing with time? We got 5 minutes. Let's keep going. Anyway, I'm going to keep going with this purport because it's sort of interesting, comparing the crows and the swans.
Mm-hmm.
They are the swans do not take pleasure in the places where crows are assembled for conferences and meetings. That's funny. They are instead seen in the atmosphere of natural scenic beauty, where there are transparent reservoirs of nicely decorated of water, nicely decorated with stems of lotus flowers.
They eat those stems.
Swans eat the stems.
I think they do.
In variegated colors of natural beauty. That is the difference between the two classes of birds.
Mm-hmm.
Nature has influenced different species of life with different mentalities, and it's not possible to bring them up into the same rank and file. Similarly, there are different kinds of literature for different types of men and different mentality. By the way, the interesting thing is the animals are sort of like bound by that karma. The crow will always go to the garbage,
right? And
the swan will always go. In the human species, when we get into a fork in the road, we can make a choice. And that's what separates the men. We have these chakras, we can utilize all the chakras. We can make a higher choice. We can go north instead of south. We can do it in our conversation. We can do it in our dinner. We can do it in our relationships. We can do it in our sexuality. We can do it with our finances. We can do it. We can live in a completely unrestricted way, and we pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We can just drive the car right off the road, so to speak. Or we can learn how to drive on the Dharma's all about driving a car. It's all about how to drive without going off the ledges, without crossing the double line. How can I drive straight? It's not even about God consciousness per se. It's about staying on the road. This is what yamas and niyamas do. And then we add that seed of bhakti, and it becomes sattva, becomes suddha sattva, or pure goodness, where it's almost not of this world any longer. What do you think about that, Kaustubha?
I think it's great. And this contrast is being drawn here. That I like the point that you made. The animal is almost forced by nature to behave like an animal. But the human being has the choice. Will I be the crow or will I be the swan? Will I just continue to consume stuff that doesn't uplift me, even though I have that opportunity? Or will I choose to live like a swan and consciously seek out that information, that literature, that sound, that association that will be purifying and uplifting? And therefore we get the Vedic aphorisms like Tato Brahma Jignasa. Now is the time to inquire into the absolute. Now, because you're born in the human body, you have the choice. Or Tato Yoga Anushasanam. Now is the time to practice yoga. Why? Because you're in the human body, you have the choice. So we all got that choice. Will I be a crow? Will I be a swan? Will I consume through my senses all that drags me down, keeps me down, just because I'm weak? Or will I step up? Will I be strong? Will I be determined? Will I gain control? Will I master the mind?
And will I transcend this? I might even have proclivities to go low. I might be born in a family that was they did crazy things. My older brothers might have taught me crazy things. My father might have been a crazy guy. But that doesn't mean I have to be a slave to that
conditioning.
Yeah, conditioning, something that's been. This is sometimes my inheritance. I inherited this stuff, born into that family. You could call it a lower birth, so to speak. Whatever we're born into, got great news for you. You can change that right now, and that's our choice right now. And in spiritual life and in bhakti, we're not denying what we are. We might have some issues. Some people say, well, we have no issues. I'm okay, and you're okay. We're not okay. We're a mess. That's okay to be a mess. I'm not okay, and you're not okay. And you know what? That's okay.
That's okay.
This is what we say.
Do something.
We do something about it. From right now, we're going to choose to act differently. And that's okay. I don't want to just say, no, I'm great. I'm great. I got issues. It's okay to have issues. That's part of having this body and being born in this age of Kali Yuga, where we don't know where we're coming from. Uh-oh, there's that sound. Thank you, everybody. If you're listening on the podcast, we're trying to get these in. Even though we're traveling and we're having tough internet connection.
Tomorrow, but I think no show tomorrow, right?
No show tomorrow because we're going. Yeah.
You're not
I'm not going to be able. I'm going to go over down hill in Radhakund. But anyway, if you're listening to the podcast, thanks. If you like it, give us 5-star review on Google, on what's it called?
Well,
Apple Podcasts.
Apple Podcasts, and subscribe on YouTube, please.
Hit that bell so you get an alert. All the Zoom people, thanks. We had like 30 people join in like 4 minutes.
Yeah, we got more people. We ended up with 60 or something.
60. Great. Thanks, everybody, joining late.